you know, your duties as a lawyer don't switch on and off just because you're in the office. When you go home at the end of the day, whether it's at 5 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you still are subject to the same duties that all of us as members of the bar are. And although I don't get involved usually in discipline matters, Diane does and other people do. And people are disciplined in California, as they are in other states, for problems that arise in their personal lives. You know, you could be arrested for drunk driving. Doesn't have anything to do with the practice of law, but that reflects on you as a professional, and it can lead to discipline. So things that happen in your marriage, driving a car, drinking too much, all sorts of problems that occur in the civil or criminal law may in fact have repercussions on you as a professional. And it can lead to professional discipline. You think that's intrusive, but that's the obligation that we undertake when we're sworn in as lawyers and are members of the bar.
Yeah. And so on certain occasions, right now, for example, the State Bar of California is the prosecutors are very busy prosecuting all the people that failed to notify them of convictions years ago because of the new fingerprinting, which the bar, by the way, lost the fingerprints. They can put out whatever kind of puff piece they want, but they wanted the new kind that could be done by the computer so they could automate it also. There are several reasons that, we all had to spend like close to $100 on getting fingerprinted.
Well, let me also mention, we're here today, you're here today because you need ethics credit as part of your CLE requirement. And beginning a few years ago, the State Bar began to automatically audit between 8 and 10% of lawyers in California. That's a large number.
Your MCLE, he's talking
about. Yeah, audit them for compliance with CLE requirements. And people, of course, really operate on an honor system. You're supposed to tell the bar that, yes, you have complied within your 3-year period with, so many hours of ethics credit. I'm glad you all are here. But some people thought they could just tell the bar they'd complied and nobody would be the wiser. But they got caught and in these audits. And, it leads to serious repercussions. They get suspended, they get fined, they even could lose their license. So
this is my worst case ever, okay? The State Bar took a position about 2 years ago that if you push the button on your computer that said, yes, I did my MCLE, and it turned out you didn't, that pushing that button was an affirmative act that constituted moral turpitude. If it was not true, you had a mandatory 30 days off, imposed suspension. I had a lady who had cancer twice in the same location. Okay, and she was taking a drug called tamoxifen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, it won't matter. Okay, but the drug she was taking caused what's known as chemo brain. Chemo brain causes you to become forgetful. She had no clients for 20 years, did not practice law, was a fundraiser for a religious school. Okay, they made her resign from the bar, have it printed in the legal press that she engaged in an act of moral turpitude, okay? I had medical records up to here. They didn't care. And it's like the one case I had that really upset me personally.
All your cases upset.
No, this one really was like a new level.
All right. Well, also, it's just worth mentioning in passing, only because Diane and I talk about this when we get together. Not only are we, reading the papers every day and seeing some of these big issues play out, but we also are operating in a much more politicized environment. And it affects the practice of law. It affects many of us who practice litigation, as I do and Diane does. So, for example, just within the last 3 years, under this administration, but with the active support of the Republican Senate, over 1/3 of all federal appellate judges have been appointed just within the last 3 years. That's 1/3 of all appellate judges have been appointed by this administration and by the Senate.
And yesterday someone was appointed that was opposed by the ABA and opposed by everyone, and they didn't care.
Well, this is what's new about this process. I mean, there's always been an element of politics about it, and nobody disputes that. But in the past, a nominee had to have the support of the home state senators, and that's being ignored. And so, as Diane says, nominees are being approved by the Senate and put on our courts for a lifetime appointment, whether in the district court or in the Court of Appeals, that are opposed and not supported by either of the home state senators, either of the California senators. And also, the ABA has always played a role, whether you like it or not, in vetting candidates. And people can be rated either well qualified, qualified, or not qualified. It was almost unheard of. I mean, it was notable if someone was appointed, was nominated, and received a not qualified rating. Now we're seeing people being approved and given lifetime appointments that are rated not qualified. And the process is a pretty rigorous process. It's not a political process. When people are rated not qualified, it's usually because, one, they have no judicial experience, or it's thought that their entire legal career has been of a political nature and not one serving clients. So there are good reasons why we have this rating system, but it too is being overridden or ignored.
I'm obviously a big fan of this institution. I'm also a big fan of the ABA. John mentioned the ABA. The ABA is the only lawyer's voice on a national basis that exists at this time. They are one of the only organizations that voted to increase the amount of time involved in the Kavanaugh hearing. Okay, so that was a big deal for me as a woman, just to look into it, not to vote yay or nay, but just have time to look into it. So I thought that was significant. And John, would you tell us about how you feel about presidential pardons?
Well, that was just one other thing that comes up in conversation. We hear a lot about presidential pardons, and what we see recently is this president rewarding people who are political allies or believed to be political allies. Joe Arpaio, the sheriff in Arizona, who was convicted of contempt of court by the federal court in Arizona. That was affirmed, upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and yet he receives a presidential pardon, and now has his eyes on elective office.
But don't you think that might have been a message sent by people in positions of power that they have pardons available?
Well, I think, we also saw recently, 3 people who were prosecuted by the military for war crimes or related crimes. Those are pretty serious. I mean, if you read the history of those offenses, they're very serious, and the military institutionally has always taken them seriously, and these individuals also receive pardons. And of course, the Secretary of the Navy was forced to resign when he spoke out in opposition to this. Where it gets, and this isn't just sort of past history and anecdote, where it gets interesting and where it's something worthy of discussion is, what if these pardons are being used as an example and are being dangled in front of people who are part of the ongoing process? So you have someone like Paul Manafort, the former head of Trump's campaign, going to prison and not agreeing to cooperate with the prosecutors because he's on record as saying he's going to be taken care of. Likewise, Roger Stone, recently convicted, he's made comments to the effect that he thinks he's going to be taken care of. Maybe yes, maybe no, but that sends a message to people that they shouldn't cooperate with the judicial system or the prosecutors. And it's a dangerous sort of system. People have recently opined in law review articles, I guess maybe op-ed pieces, that there should be some limitation on the presidential pardon power, although there isn't anything in the Constitution, that in fact it constitutes a form of obstruction of justice. So that all remains to be debated.
There's actually an office of the president. There's an office of pardons. There's a pardon lawyer who's affiliated with the president or any other chief executive, and they study cases that merit a pardon. Generally, they study the records. It's not done by the back of the seat of your pants. It's a true process, and I knew Maggie Love did that. And it's not like a political favor. It shows a complete and total disrespect for our judiciary system. And I want to note that, and we are biased. I wish, I don't see how you can be unbiased today, just as, So now, I would like to talk with you about Rudy Giuliani, because boy, what a guy. And it's a really good teaching moment for all of you, all right? Because frequently when he's doing the news media blitzes, he'll say, I'm acting as an independent lawyer. Or otherwise, he'll say, I'm acting as the president's lawyer. And so what he's doing is he's creating confusion in the minds of the public as to what his role is. And that's why frequently, we have lots of LA lawyers, you can't beat them, okay? They're in all the national cases. This is a major legal market. But frequently, if you have a lawyer involved in a major political or non-political, any case, and the press comes to them, they'll say no comment. And the reason they're saying no comment is why? We do questions and answers both ways. I'm good with it. I taught contracts torts in the UCC for a decade with law students, so I'm ready. Okay, so I'll answer my question. The reason why is you don't want to impair your client's right to claim confidentiality if a matter proceeds further. That's something that as a lawyer, it's one of our big by the way, the reason I explained fiduciary duties to you is so if you get bored during the program, okay, you can think, well, what fiduciary duty are they talking about right now? So you can multitask in your mind while we're doing this, and no, it's true, okay? And so so when I said, how is he creating problems down the road? At some point in time, Giuliani might be, have to answer for things, and he might want to claim attorney-client privilege, and he's impairing that ability to claim that by all the times he says, I'm acting as an independent person.
Or he says he's acting as an agent of the Secretary of State or the State Department.
It seems to change constantly based upon the marching orders he has. It's in California, again, I want to note to you, it has a very robust duty of confidentiality.